Alex felt his heart pound loudly in his chest as he wheeled into the crowded school hallway on his old metal wheelchair, noticing the dull hum of voices and the bright overhead lights reflecting on the polished linoleum floor. Each clack of the wheels echoed like a slow drumbeat in his ears as he passed tall rows of green lockers lined with colorful magnets and scratched metal nameplates. He kept his head low and his gaze fixed on a single square of linoleum ahead so he would not see anyone staring or whispering behind his back. His classmates often laughed when his chair's brakes squeaked or when a loose bolt rattled against the frame as he tried to turn. Alex's right leg had been stiff since birth, and he wore a sturdy brace that creaked softly whenever he shifted his weight. He learned early to push himself forward with strong arms and careful hands that knew the chair's tiniest movements. Some kids called him names under their breath and pointed at his crooked leg when they thought no one heard. Others saw his chair as a funny toy and banged its wheels with their backpacks for sport. Alex pressed his lips together and counted slowly in his mind to keep his breathing steady whenever the teasing began. Sarah, his best friend since second grade, waited for him in art class and offered encouraging smiles that felt like warm sunlight. She quietly told him he was brave and strong, like the hero in the picture books they read together at lunch. Alex liked to imagine himself on an open field far from this noisy hallway, where the grass was soft and the sky stretched wide. He pictured friendly animals greeting him by name and leading him on gentle adventures through open meadows. But those daydreams faded the moment the school bell rang and a group of bullies appeared near the lockers. Trey and his friends leaned against the cold metal doors, smirking as soon as they saw Alex roll into view. Trey crossed his arms, tilted his head, and laughed in a slow, mocking way that made Alex's stomach twist. One boy kicked at a stray piece of paper on the floor just to watch Alex struggle around it. The paper slid under Alex's front wheel, causing the chair to jerk sharply to the side. The chair tipped slightly and scraped against the row of lockers with a harsh grinding sound. Trey laughed high and loud, his voice echoing off the walls like a sharp whistle. His friends joined in, stamping their feet and making rude imitations of a wheelchair noise. Alex's cheeks heated up, and he fought the urge to burst into tears in front of the crowd. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and reminded himself of Sarah's kind words. In his mind, he heard her gentle voice telling him he was more than what they saw. As he steadied his chair, a cold bump appeared on his wrist where Trey's friend had kicked with too much force. Alex winced at the sharp ache but refused to let it show on his face. He pushed on, determined to reach his classroom without giving them the satisfaction of seeing him cry. The bully circle opened just enough for him to pass, but not without grumbles and snickers. A teacher's firm voice suddenly rang out from the end of the hallway, cutting through the laughter. The bullies froze, their eyes darting toward the approaching figure in a navy sweater and crisp white shirt. Trey quickly straightened his shoulders and shoved his hands into his pockets, trying to look innocent. His friends scattered like birds taking flight, pretending to search for missing textbooks on the floor. Alex rolled away from the lockers as the teacher drew nearer, his wheels leaving faint skid marks on the floor. His forearms ached, but a surge of relief warmed him when the teacher knelt beside his chair. She asked in a gentle voice if he was all right, her brown eyes full of concern and kindness. Alex nodded, blinking back a few tears that stung his vision, and whispered that he would be fine. The teacher stayed with him until his breath came evenly again and his hands stopped shaking. She carefully checked the brace on his leg and pressed along the chair's frame to make sure nothing was loose. Alex managed a small smile and felt a spark of pride when she praised his courage. As he wheeled into art class, he carried that spark like a new light inside, ready for whatever came next. Alex rolled into the sunlit art room, noticing the tall windows that cast bright lines across the rows of wooden desks, each topped with paint stains, pencil shavings, and scraps of colored paper that fluttered in a gentle breeze. The art teacher, Mrs. Cole, welcomed him with a warm nod and motioned toward the easel by the window where he could set up his supplies for today's project with ease and comfort. He placed his old metal wheelchair beside the easel, careful to lock the brakes before reaching out to open his worn pencil case filled with colored pencils, brushes, and a small set of watercolor paints. The click of lids coming off paint tubes and the soft crinkle of paper drew gentle glances from classmates who had seen him roll in and knew he always brought thoughtful art projects. Trey and two friends sat at a nearby table, their usual sneers replaced by hesitant looks as if they were unsure whether to laugh or remain silent in the bright art room. Alex dipped a brush into pale blue paint and began to sketch a calm ocean scene with smooth lines and simple shapes, imagining cool waves gently rising and falling under a clear sky. The classroom smelled of wet paint and fresh clay, a comforting mix that made Alex forget, for a moment, the rough hallway and the mocking voices that had chased him there. Mrs. Cole moved quietly between tables, offering suggestions in a soft voice that encouraged each student to trust their own creative choices and to fill their papers with colors that spoke to them. Alex felt a sense of peace as he mixed bright yellow and soft green on his palette, thinking of the sunlit fields he often pictured in his daydreams when he needed to feel free. He traced the gentle curve of a hill with a thin brush, adding tiny trees that stood straight and tall, then painted little dots of red and orange to show flowers blooming in neat rows. Across the room, Trey played with a lump of clay, his jaw tight, his movements stiff like he did not know how to shape it, as though he feared making a mistake under Mrs. Cole's watchful eye. Alex glanced up and saw Trey's lips pressed together, his gaze flickering away the moment Alex met his eyes, leaving a flicker of guilt or doubt behind. A soft tap on the desk made Alex look down to see Sarah offering him a spare paintbrush she had sharpened for fine details on the trees she was painting for his scene. He accepted it with a grateful smile, feeling the warmth of friendship glow stronger than the mixing colors on his paper, feeling happy. Each brushstroke felt steady and sure, as if his arms remembered how to move with confidence that the hallway bullies could not take away from him. Trey set his clay aside and stood near the window, folding his arms and staring out as though the bright day held answers he did not know how to find yet. Alex wondered if Trey felt the same ache to be seen for something other than the power he tried to get by teasing others each day. The scissors clicked softly as Alex cut a thin strip of blue paper to glue onto his painting, creating a border that framed the waves like a gentle ocean window. Mrs. Cole paused beside Alex again and complimented the clean lines of his hills, noting how he balanced colors with care and made simple shapes look alive. He nodded and whispered, "Thank you," remembering that kindness carried weight stronger than mocking laughter or cruel words. At that moment, the bell rang for break, and classmates gathered to leave their art tools behind and pack books into backpacks that smelled of fresh paper and plastic zippers. Alex wheeled himself toward the exit, carefully lifting his canvas from the easel with both hands, mindful of his wheels and the smooth movement he had practiced so many times. In the hallway, Trey and his friends waited just outside the classroom door, their faces stiff as they noticed Alex coming without a sign of fear in his gentle eyes. Trey reached out and held Alex's canvas as Alex moved beside him, and for a heartbeat it looked like he would dash it to the floor to hurt him again. Instead, Trey dropped his hand and said quietly, "That's good," his voice low and unsteady, as though he was surprised he even meant to speak at all. Alex tilted his head and peered at Trey's expression, reading confusion mixed with something like regret that puzzled him more than any art lesson. Trey's friends shuffled behind him, casting quick glances at Alex's painting, their cheeks red as if they realized how little they understood about his world. Alex felt his heart swell with cautious hope that maybe they had learned something in art class that words in the hallway could never teach. Sarah joined them then, slipping her arm through Alex's so they could walk together toward the cafeteria, and he felt supported as his wheels rolled smoothly past the scattered chatter. Trey walked beside them, hands in his pockets, his eyes fixed on the floor instead of the window, and he looked smaller than before as though holding his own hurt inside. When they reached the crowded lunchroom, they found an empty table near the sunny windows, and Alex carefully set his painting upright against the wall so he could show everyone. He explained the scene in simple words, pointing to the blue waves and green hills and saying, "This is where I feel the most free, like I can go anywhere without wheels slowing me down." Some classmates nodded, their voices soft as they asked questions about the trees and flowers, and Alex answered with pride, using each answer to build a bridge between his world and theirs. Trey looked at the painting and then at Alex's face, his brow furrowed as he searched for the right words, and after a long moment he finally said, "I'm sorry I laughed at your chair." A hush spread across the table and Alex blinked, surprised by Trey's admission. Then he offered a small, forgiving smile that felt like sunshine on his heart. Trey swallowed hard and met Alex's gaze, saying, "I didn't know how much you struggled, and I did not think about how it felt to be made fun of every day." Alex nodded and said softly, "It hurts, but today in art class I felt something different, like people saw my heart in those colors." Trey's shoulders relaxed as he heard Alex's words, and he reached out to brush a hand against Alex's canvas in a gentle, careful way that felt full of respect. The crowded lunchroom noise faded for Alex in that moment, replaced by quiet understanding that spread from his painting to the faces all around the table. As the bell rang again to signal the end of lunch break, Alex felt hope flutter like the pages of an open book, certain that these small gestures could change everything that came next. Alex wheeled into the bright science lab, where long brown tables were arranged in neat rows and each surface held shiny microscopes with silver knobs. Racks of glass test tubes filled with bubbling red, blue, and yellow liquids, bins of wires and batteries, and faded posters of planets and cells plastered on pale green walls. Mrs. Patel stood near the whiteboard wearing a crisp navy blouse, adjusting her glasses before greeting each student by name and explaining that today's lesson would explore the magic of simple electric circuits. Alex parked his old metal wheelchair beside a table at the front of the room and carefully locked the wheels, reaching into his backpack to pull out a small plastic bag containing copper wires, tiny light bulbs, and coin cell batteries. Trey and his friends approached the same table hesitantly, carrying kits with red and black wires, switch levers, and printed worksheets showing battery symbols and circuit diagrams. Mrs. Patel asked students to form pairs and challenged them to figure out how to connect wires, batteries, and bulbs to make the tiny filament glow brightly like a miniature sun. Sarah moved beside Alex, her curly brown hair bouncing as she set down her supplies neatly on the table and offered him the extra pair of insulated gloves she always carried. Alex picked up the copper wires and traced their smooth metallic surface with his gloved thumb, lining them up carefully next to the battery terminals printed on the worksheet. Trey watched for a moment, then reached over and helped Alex clip a wire to the positive end of the battery, his fingers steady as he curved the wire around a small metal post. Alex matched the other wire to the base of the tiny light bulb while Trey held the battery in place so the connections would not slip apart. A soft click sounded when the wires met the terminals, and suddenly the filament inside the glass bulb glowed with a warm orange light that made the surrounding students lean in to see better. Trey and Alex exchanged excited looks as Mrs. Patel moved around the room, nodding in approval and congratulating groups whose bulbs lit up on the first try. The other students gathered closer, asking questions about how the current flowed from the battery through the wires and back to complete the loop that powered the bulb. Alex explained step by step, pointing to the arrows drawn on the worksheet that showed the direction of electron flow, demonstrating that electricity needs a complete path to travel. Trey listened carefully with his eyebrows raised, then asked how adding a switch would let them control when the bulb would turn on or off without disconnecting the wires. Mrs. Patel handed them a small plastic switch and suggested they place it in series with the wires, showing with a pointer where to cut the circuit path and insert the switch for easy control. Alex and Trey followed her guidance, snipping the wire between battery and bulb, attaching it to the switch's metal clips, and then clicking the lever to see the bulb blink on and off in response. Gasps and soft applause rose around a table as the tiny bulb flickered like a friendly firefly under the overhead fluorescent lights. Trey's friends moved in, curious now about the experiment, and one of them volunteered to help test different wire lengths to see how distance affected the brightness of the bulb. Alex offered each friend a piece of insulated wire, showing them how to strip the plastic coating off the ends carefully to expose the metal inside without cutting any strands. The classmates worked together, measuring wires with rulers, marking cut points with pencils, and twisting the exposed metal ends around the battery posts. As they tested each length, the bulb glowed brighter on shorter wires and dimmer on longer ones, teaching everyone a real-life lesson about resistance and electrical flow. Mrs. Patel called everyone back to their seats when the class timer chimed, reminding them to document their findings in neat paragraphs inside their science journals. Alex set aside the lab kit and opened his notebook, writing detailed observations in short sentences and drawing accurate diagrams of the circuit with labels for each part. Trey placed his own notebook beside Alex's, his handwriting messy at first but growing neater as he copied the diagram and added bullet points summarizing the results. Sarah peeked at both notebooks and suggested they draw a color diagram in the margin to help remember how the circuit looked when the switch was on or off. Alex picked 3 colored pencils, red for the positive wire, black for the negative wire, and yellow for the glowing bulb, and carefully shaded the diagram margins. Trey laughed softly when the yellow pencil tip broke, apologizing to Alex for pressing too hard, and Alex handed him a fresh pencil without hesitation. A bell rang to signal the end of science class, and students began to pack up their gear, placing wires back in plastic trays and twisting bulb sockets back into foam holders. Alex and Trey worked side by side, coiling wires into loops and stacking batteries neatly in their kits so nothing would rattle or roll away. As they left the lab, Trey turned to Alex and said, "Thanks for showing me how circuits work step by step. It's way more fun than I thought." Alex smiled and told Trey he was happy to share, explaining that teaching someone else helped him learn even better than doing the experiment alone. Trey's voice softened as he added, "I'm really sorry I laughed at you in the hallway before. I didn't understand how strong you are at learning and sharing knowledge. Alex nodded and said, "It's okay. Today you saw something new, and that's all that matters," his words gentle like a warm breeze on his skin. Trey grinned and offered to carry Alex's heavy backpack for the next class so Alex could focus on steering his wheelchair without extra weight. Sarah joined them at the door, lifting a folder that had fallen and handing it back to Alex with her favorite green pencil tucked inside. Trey's friends waited politely behind, no longer tossing teasing glances, and one of them gave Alex a thumbs up before walking away. Together they rolled down the hallway, the afternoon sun streaming through high windows and painting warm stripes on the polished linoleum floor. Alex felt the wheel rims spin smoothly and heard the gentle hum of airborne dust motes in the golden light, a calm reminder of his own steady progress. He looked at Trey, feeling confident that kindness and curiosity could build stronger connections than mockery ever could. When they reached their next classroom, Alex took a deep breath, ready to face the day as a welcome classmate instead of a target of cruel jokes. Alex wheeled into the school gym, which smelled of freshly polished wood floors, clean paint on the walls, and the faint scent of old sweat, noticing tall windows that let bright sunlight flood the wide basketball court. Coach Ramirez stood at center court wearing a light gray polo shirt with the school logo stitched above his heart, holding a bright orange basketball that glowed under the overhead lights and greeting each student by name. Alex parked his old metal wheelchair near the bleachers under the wall banners, careful to lock the worn rubber brakes before pulling a small blue ball designed for adaptive sports from his navy canvas tote bag. Trey and Sarah joined him, each carrying a regulation basketball with dark brown leather ridges and glossy black lines, their sneakers squeaking softly as they warmed up with gentle dribbles. Coach Ramirez explained that today's activity would combine wheelchair and stand-up basketball in mixed teams, teaching cooperation, respect, and the importance of including every teammate in play. Alex gripped the adaptive ball's textured surface, feeling its ridges under his palm as he prepared to play side by side with classmates who had never seen him compete before. Trey nodded at Alex and carefully shifted his wheelchair into the team's starting position, adjusting it so Alex could pivot smoothly and see the entire half-court without bumping into anything. At the sharp blast of Coach Ramirez's silver whistle, echoing under the high ceiling and bouncing off hanging banners, all four teams lined up at opposite corners ready to begin. Alex dribbled the ball low to the ground, the firm bounce sounding like a heartbeat on the wooden floor as he propelled his wheelchair forward with steady determination. A loud thump rang out each time he bounced, and classmates paused their warm-up exercises to watch him weave between the painted lines toward the first defender. Trey chased after Alex, running in quick long strides but realizing his own speed could not match Alex's sharp turns and controlled acceleration in the wheelchair. Alex approached the basket at one end of the court, darting past a classmate who reached out to block him, then paused to choose the best angle for his shot. He lifted the ball upward with a careful flick of his wrist, sending it into a high arc that made it hover briefly against the sunlit backdrop of the windows. The ball swished through the net with a soft whisper, causing Coach Ramirez to clap his hands and shout, "Great shot, Alex," in a booming voice that echoed around the gym. Trey jogged over to retrieve the ball, handing it back to Alex with newfound respect as he realized how skillful his classmate could be under pressure. Coach Ramirez then introduced a new rule requiring each player to make at least one pass before attempting a shot, emphasizing trust, communication, and teamwork. Alex rolled across the court and passed the ball to Sarah with a firm push, spinning his wheelchair smoothly as he followed the direction of her swift dribble. Sarah caught the ball cleanly, her curly hair bouncing as she looked for open teammates, then sent a crisp bounce pass to Trey with surprising accuracy. Trey caught it on the move, pivoted to avoid a defender, and shot a layup that brushed the rim before dropping through with a satisfying clink. Students on both teams learned to respect the wheelchair's movement space, adjusting their footwork and dribbles so that everyone could play safely and fairly. At midcourt, Alex led a fast break by tapping the ball twice for a pass, waving his free hand once for a cut, and his teammates responded by moving in perfect unison. When an opposing player tried to block a shot at the free throw line, Trey slid beside Alex to clear a path, shouting, "Go for it," in a voice full of genuine encouragement. Sarah intercepted a pass near the sideline, then passed back to Alex, who caught it with one hand and spun 180 degrees to face the hoop before shooting. The ball hit the rim, bounced unpredictably off the metal structure, and fell through the net, prompting cheers that rippled across the wooden bleachers. Coach Ramirez paused the game at halftime to hand out water bottles, reminding everyone to praise each other's good plays and to keep the energy positive. Alex took a long drink of cool water, the droplets sliding down his throat, and said he had never played a sport that felt so fair to everyone involved. Trey admitted he was wrong to tease Alex in the hallway and offered a sincere apology, explaining that today's game showed him how strong and skilled Alex really was. Sarah added that she learned more about true teamwork in a single gym class than from any group project she'd done in her entire school year. Coach Ramirez nodded with pride and reminded the class that real victories come from respect and inclusion, not just from points on a scoreboard. The second half began with renewed enthusiasm as students cheered loudly, using whistles and claps to celebrate both dramatic plays and small assists. Alex demonstrated a pivot move he had practiced at home, spinning his wheelchair smoothly to create open passing lanes while defenders stumbled to keep up. Trey feinted to one side and then set a solid screen, giving Alex a clear route to the basket and showing how well they had learned to work together. Sarah executed a perfect underhand bounce pass, landing the ball in Alex's hands with a satisfying thud that made his smile shine under the gym lights. Alex dribbled twice, closed his eyes briefly to steady his aim, and then gently lobbed the ball toward the hoop, where it bounced once off the backboard before dropping through. The bench erupted into applause, students rushing to the sidelines and cheering Alex's name louder than any team chant they had practiced. Coach Ramirez blew his whistle, signaling the end of the game, and declared that every team had shown outstanding sportsmanship and skill. Alex felt a deep sense of pride not because his team had won, but because he had helped teach classmates that inclusion and kindness could transform any activity. Trey offered to help Alex wheel off the court, extending his hand to steady the chair as they headed toward the locker area with respectful nods. Sarah high-fived Alex and said she could not wait for the next game, promising to practice dribbling drills together after school to get even better. As they left the gym, golden afternoon sunlight slanted through the high windows, painting long stripes on the polished floor and lighting the way for friendships built on respect. Alex wheeled into the computer lab after lunch, noticing the air was cool and quiet except for the soft hum of dozens of monitors, the gentle tapping of student fingers on keyboards, and the faint smell of warm plastic and electrical insulation. Each desk held a sleek black laptop with glowing keys and colorful stickers, a gaming mouse pulsing under neon lights, a vibrant mousepad printed with code snippets, and open coding workbooks filled with bright diagrams. Mrs. Nguyen, the technology teacher, stood at the front wearing a charcoal gray cardigan over a sky blue blouse and greeted each student by name as she adjusted the digital projector to display today's robotics lesson. Alex parked his wheelchair at a sturdy metal table with built-in cable organizers under each workstation, locked the worn rubber brakes, and pulled out a compact toolkit that rattled with socket bits, sensor modules, miniature motors, and a half-built robot chassis. Trey and his friends approached hesitantly, each holding tote bags filled with thin circuit boards, colorful jumper wires wrapped neatly on spools, small breadboards, and bright sensor units, their teasing sneers replaced by curiosity. Mrs. Nguyen explained that each group would have 90 minutes to build a small wheeled robot capable of navigating a taped maze using light sensors to detect black lines and program instructions they would write. Sarah slid into the rolling chair beside Alex, offering him the extra pair of safety goggles she kept in her backpack and tucking her curly hair behind her ear so she could lean forward to inspect each tiny component with full focus. Alex fitted the goggles carefully over his eyes, then picked up the delicate wheel assembly with steady fingers that brushed against its smooth metal surface before clicking it into place on the chassis axle with a soft snap. Trey's friends moved closer around the table, their eyes bright behind safety goggles as they touched sensor modules and examined the green circuit board etched with copper paths that guided electrical signals to the robot sensors. Alex explained that the wheels needed to align straight so the robot would roll forward unless a light sensor detected a change in brightness at the maze edges, triggering instructions to execute a precise 90-degree turn while pointing to the printed worksheet. He then demonstrated how to solder two slender red and black wires to tiny metal tabs on the circuit board, describing that the red wire carried power from the battery pack while the black served as the return path for the current. Trey watched intently as a droplet of solder melted and formed a shiny connection around a wire joint, and he held the board steady so the joint cooled smoothly without any loose strands. Meanwhile, Sarah tested a light sensor by clipping its leads to the microcontroller board and shining a flashlight over its surface to watch the readings on the laptop screen rise and fall in a smooth gradient. Mrs. Nguyen moved among the groups, praising students for neat solder joints, clear wiring, and thoughtful code planning, reminding everyone that strong robots began with careful assembly and logical programs. Alex opened his laptop to the block-based coding interface, where colored blocks labeled forward, turn, if, and loop awaited instruction, and he began dragging and snapping them into place while scrolling a side panel showing live sensor values change in real time. Trey peered at the screen as Alex explained that the loop block would repeat instructions until a sensor triggered a change. If blocks would check brightness levels, and timing blocks controlled will speed. With a few quick taps, Alex entered numerical values for delay and turning angle, adjusted the speed parameter to medium pace, and clicked Upload, watching a progress bar fill across the bottom of the interface. Trey's eyes widened as he asked how adding extra sensors or commands could make the robot respond to obstacles or play simple sounds when it finished the maze. Alex nodded and described how they could attach an ultrasonic sensor to measure distance or add a buzzer to signal the finish line, ideas that made Trey's friends lean in eagerly. Once the code finished uploading, they carefully placed the small wheeled robot at the start of the taped maze on the shiny lab floor lined with colored tape strips, aligning its sensors just inches from the first corner. Trey counted down, 3, 2, 1, go, and the robot rolled forward smoothly on rubber wheels, made accurate turns at each angle, and paused briefly under low light before continuing to the exit line. Nearby tables erupted in applause as students gathered to examine the robot's precise path, leaning over to watch its smooth transitions between commands and sensor detection points, while several ceiling cameras captured the run. Mrs. Nguyen praised it as a model demonstration, noting the clean code, precise wiring, and careful sensor setup that led to success on the first attempt. Trey's friends, their earlier mocking forgotten, formed a circle around Alex's workspace and asked him to explain each code block function and how circuits supported those behaviors. Mrs. Nguyen allowed 10 minutes so groups could swap hardware parts, compare code snippets, and brainstorm features like line-following adjustments, infrared communication between robots, or small robotic arms that could pick up light objects. Alex and Trey sat with laptops open side by side, swapping orange and blue markers to highlight key logic sequences they planned to refine in the next design iteration. Sarah sketched circuit diagrams in her notebook, labeling microcontroller pins, sensor leads, and motor terminals with neat letters and arrows so they would remember each connection exactly. Trey asked Alex if he could borrow a light sensor for a weekend project with his younger cousin, explaining that he wanted to teach basic coding in a fun, hands-on workshop. Alex wrote simple instructions on a small slip of paper with neat writing, placed the spare sensor in a baggie, and tied it with a rubber band before handing it to Trey with a handwritten note reminding him to return it Monday. When the bell rang, signaling class in with a soft ding, students began closing laptop lids, detaching battery packs from robot frames, and returning toolkits to plastic bins with secure lids. Trey coiled a length of jumper wire neatly and placed it beside Alex's toolkit so nothing would tangle or snag as Alex wheeled away. Alex felt his wheelchair bump softly against Trey's leg as they moved toward the door, and heard Trey say, "Thanks for teaching me coding. I didn't know robotics could be this fun." Alex smiled and replied, "I love solving puzzles with code. It's like creating a brain for a machine, and sharing it makes it even better." Trey paused and said sincerely, "I'm really sorry I ever made fun of you. Today you showed me skills I respect." Alex nodded and said, "I forgive you," the words calm like the hum of the lab's cooling fans. As they wheeled out of the computer lab, Sarah and Trey's friends followed closely with their sketchbooks and coding notebooks under their arms, chatting about hosting a robot obstacle course next week. The hallway lights reflected off Alex's wheelchair rims, casting bright thin lines across the tiled floor as the group rolled toward their lockers. Students passing by paused at the open door to watch them leave, smiles replacing the sneers that once greeted Alex in the hall. Alex wheeled into the school library, where tall oak bookshelves formed quiet corridors filled with colorful spines, soft rugs by the reading tables, and the gentle echo of pages turning under the fluorescent lights. Mr. Lee, the librarian, greeted Alex by name with a friendly wave as he wore a green sweater vest and round glasses perched on his nose, reminding Alex that the library was a place of respect and calm for everyone. Alex parked his wheelchair beside a circular table topped with storybooks, reference volumes, and open laptops waiting for research, then carefully locked the brakes before opening his backpack. Trey and Sarah approached carrying graphic novels and a stack of textbooks for their history project, their previous teasing forgotten as they joined Alex at the same table. Mrs. Porter, the history teacher, introduced today's assignment. Each group would research a famous civil rights leader, prepare a poster board presentation, and share key events that shaped equality movements. Alex took a deep breath and selected his research materials, including an illustrated biography of Rosa Parks, a timeline pamphlet about bus boycotts, and a tablet loaded with primary source photographs. Trey found a large hardcover encyclopedia on the shelf, flipped it open to the index page, and read aloud the years of major events while Sarah jotted notes in her spiral notebook with neat handwriting. Alex used his tablet to zoom in on black and white images, pointing out Rosa Parks' determined expression and the crowded city bus where she sat with peaceful purpose. Mrs. Porter encouraged each group to identify 3 lessons from their leader's life and to explain how ordinary people could stand up for justice through small acts of courage. Alex suggested they highlight the power of saying no to unfair rules, the importance of community solidarity, and the impact of determined voices speaking truth to authority. Trey nodded and added that showing respect for all human beings, regardless of differences, built bridges between strangers and helped create lasting change. Sarah sketched a rough poster layout, marking a bold title across the top, a timeline down the left side, and space for 3 illustrated scenes that captured pivotal moments. Alex organized his notes into bullet points under each lesson, using short sentences that explained key facts without extra words to keep the presentation clear for classmates. Trey found a pack of colored markers in the supply drawer and passed Alex a deep blue marker for the timeline, while Sarah chose red and gold for highlighting quotes. Alex drew straight lines and labeled dates carefully, his arm steady as he guided the marker along the poster board's edge without any smudges. Trey wrote the main quote, "You must never be fearful about what you are doing when it is right," in his neat cursive, and Sarah underlined it for emphasis. As they worked, other students peeked over, asking polite questions about the life of Rosa Parks and whether they could borrow markers for their own projects. Alex smiled and offered a spare green marker, feeling proud that his research had sparked genuine interest instead of ridicule. Trey's friends, once silent in the hallway, complimented the clean layout and asked how they could find more photographs to make their own posters shine. Mrs. Porter walked by, praising the group's collaboration, clear writing, and creative design, reminding them to practice their speaking parts before tomorrow's presentations. Alex volunteered to read the first section on Parks' early life, including her childhood in Alabama and her work as a seamstress in Montgomery. Trey offered to cover the bus boycott timeline, explaining how community organizers circulated leaflets and held secret meetings to plan the protest. Sarah agreed to close with the lasting impact of the boycott, describing how it inspired future movements and showed that ordinary people could demand equal treatment. Mrs. Porter suggested they rehearse in front of each other now, so they could give feedback on volume, pacing, and eye contact before speaking to the whole class. Alex took a deep breath, projected his voice clearly, and maintained steady eye contact with Trey and Sarah as he described young Rose's determination in simple, heartfelt words. Trey pointed to the timeline confidently and narrated each date with clear enunciation, avoiding extra sounds and speaking at a steady pace. Sarah concluded with a sincere tone, pausing after each sentence so listeners could absorb the significance of each achievement and quote. When they finished, Trey gave Alex a thumbs up, saying, "You sounded great, your research really shone through." Sarah smiled and added, "Your clear notes and illustrations make it so easy to follow the story." Alex felt a warm glow of pride, knowing his careful preparation and strong voice were appreciated by teammates who had once mocked him. Mrs. Porter returned and asked if they were ready to present tomorrow, then reminded them to rest their voices and review their notes tonight at home. Trey and Sarah both said yes, and Trey offered to help Alex carry his heavy poster board to his locker so it would stay flat and undamaged. Alex gratefully accepted and locked his brakes before turning his wheels toward the exit, poster board balanced gently on his lap. At the library door, a small group of classmates paused to say they looked forward to hearing about Rosa Parks and thanked Alex for helping them learn something new today. Alex waved and replied, "I can't wait to share. It's our story to tell, and we did it together," his voice steady and genuine. Trey wheeled beside him, saying quietly, "Thanks for including me and for teaching me how to make my notes clear and simple." Alex nodded and said, "Helping each other is what makes a team strong." As they left, Mr. Lee called out, "Great work, everyone. Keep respecting the library's quiet and each other's ideas." Alex felt the wheels glide smoothly down the hallway, each turn carrying him further from the old mockery and closer to new friendships built on mutual respect. He glanced back at Trey and Sarah with a grateful smile, certain that this library project had changed how they all saw each other forever. Alex wheeled into the bright music room, noticing rows of acoustic guitars hanging on the wall, shiny metal music stands in front of gleaming keyboards, and colorful percussion instruments stacked neatly on shelves under posters of famous musicians, smelling the faint scent of varnished wood. Mr. Daniels, the music teacher, greeted Alex with a cheerful nod, his plaid shirt sleeves rolled up as he picked up a wooden conductor's baton and explained that today's lesson would focus on rhythm, melody, and teamwork in creating a simple song, the sweet scent of chalkboard dust mixing with musical energy. Alex parked his wheelchair by a keyboard station, careful to lock his brakes before reaching into his backpack for a small notebook filled with sheet music he had copied at home, the scribbles of notation visible on each page, and placed it on the folding music stand. Trey and Sarah joined him, each carrying a pair of rhythm sticks and a hand drum with bright red skins and polished wood rims, curiosity replacing their usual laughter as they gathered around Alex's station to see what he would play. Mr. Daniels invited students to choose an instrument and work in small groups to create a short composition that combined keyboard chords, drum beats, and simple sung melodies, emphasizing listening to each other and encouraging quiet focus before each note. Alex placed his fingers on the black and white keys, feeling the cool, smooth surface under his palms as he played a clear chord progression he had practiced the night before, sensing gentle vibrations travel through his fingertips. Sarah tapped light beats on her rhythm sticks, matching Alex's tempo by counting softly under her breath to keep perfect timing, while Trey gently tapped a hand drum to fill in the downbeat with steady support. Other classmates watched and joined in with shakers and tambourines, their faces curious as sounds blended into a gentle song that echoed under the high ceiling and reverberated warmly against the walls. Alex guided the group by nodding and mouthing the tempo, his strong arms moving quickly between keys as he played a simple melody that wove like a thread through a tapestry of sound. Trey looked surprised when Alex added a small flourish at the end of the phrase, a quick run of notes that made the melody sparkle like sunlight dancing on rippling water. Sarah sang the first verse of words they had written together, her voice soft but clear, inspiring some classmates to join in humming along in gentle harmony. Mr. Daniels clapped in time, offering suggestions on how to adjust volume and address so the piece would sound balanced and inviting, touching his baton to illustrate subtle cues. Alex watched the students lean in, listening carefully and following his direction as they played, feeling proud that every voice responded to his musical ideas with genuine interest. Trey's friends who had once mocked his wheelchair now smiled and kept perfect time with the drum, their earlier cruelty forgotten in the shared creative moment that united the group. Alex suggested changing the chord in the second measure to create a hopeful shift in mood, and the group followed without question, trusting his musical sense to guide them. Sarah added a harmonizing second line in the chorus, raising her voice on the ooh and a parts to fill out the sound, her curly hair moving like graceful dancers in a breeze. Trey clapped the final rhythm pattern, counting aloud 1, 2, 3, 4, and the group ended the piece with a unified beat that resonated like a heartbeat through the quiet room. As the last note faded, Mr. Daniels turned toward Alex and said, "That was wonderful teamwork and creativity," his eyes shining with genuine praise that warmed the air. Trey smiled at Alex and said quietly, "You're really talented. I can't believe how good that sounded," his tone warm and honest. Alex smiled back and replied, "Music lets us speak without words," his voice steady and confident like a clear bell tone that rang through his mind. Mr. Daniels then asked volunteers to perform the piece for the whole class, and several students raised their hands enthusiastically, eager to share in the sound. Trey and Alex moved together to the front, with Sarah following and carrying their rhythm sticks, while other classmates stood behind them, prepared to play shakers and tambourines in bright reds, blues, and greens. As they began the performance, Alex struck the opening chord confidently, the keyboard's clear tone filling the space and capturing everyone's attention with rich overtones and crisp attack. Sarah tapped her sticks in time, and Trey followed with a drum, while two classmates added bright shaker sounds to create a fuller textured sound that glowed. The class listened in respectful silence, nodding heads and tapping feet to the steady beat, smiling as the melody swept like a gentle breeze through the room. When the final chord rang out, the room exploded into applause, students cheering and Mr. Daniels offering a thumbs up of approval as the sound faded. Trey glanced at Alex, his eyes shining with new respect, and whispered, "I'm sorry I ever doubted you," before turning back to accept the applause. Alex bowed slightly, his cheeks warming but his smile broad as he soaked in the friendly approval, his wheelchair wheels humming softly as he shifted, the warm glow of friendship enveloping him. Mr. Daniels invited Alex to lead the class in a simple clapping exercise to practice their next song, and Alex nodded, feeling honored to help teach his peers. Alex counted the rhythm on his fingers and led the class in claps of 1, 2, 3, 4, guiding everyone to stay together like a single musical heart pulsing in unison. Trey watched closely and kept perfect time, offering a small nod of encouragement to Alex whenever he glanced over, reinforcing unity and support. Sarah distributed small jingle bells for classmates to join in, explaining how adding new sounds enriched the musical tapestry they were weaving together. Alex demonstrated how to hold the bells gently so they rang clearly without shaking too fiercely, his hands steady as he showed each student the proper gentle grip. The group played through the piece again with bells added, and the sound became richer and more joyful, twinkling like stars in a calm evening sky. Mr. Daniels praised the class for their attentive listening and for welcoming Alex as both a musician and a leader, reminding them that music, like friendship, is a gift to cherish. Trey and Alex exchange a high five after the lesson, their laughter soft and genuine, marking a clear shift from cruelty to genuine friendship. As the bell rang to signal the end of music class, Alex carefully closed his music notebook and unplugged his folding stand, ready for the next adventure and any surprises it might bring. Trey offered to help push Alex's wheelchair out of the room so he could avoid any bumps near the door, and Alex gratefully accepted the extra support. Sarah walked beside them carrying sheet music, chatting excitedly about composing their own song for the upcoming school talent show, ideas already dancing in her mind. As they wheeled down the hallway toward their lockers, the echoes of their music still lingered in the air, reminding them that creativity and respect could change any heart and bring harmony to every space.